Yeah, I was waiting for him to go, it's Percy Jackson, turn to the camera, and the Olympians on Disney Plus Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, so the whole thing. What's good? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm the titular Newest Olympian. I'm a 31-year-old man who never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid. I read them as an adult. I covered them on my podcast to determine if it was a book series that society has been sleeping on. I said yes, and now we're seeing if the whole series has been slept on, and the TV show has now reached its conclusion. Has the world woken up? We shall see. But to cover the finale of Season 1 of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, I'm joined by a very special guest, my bestest friend in the whole wide world, and my wife. It's Kelly Schubert. Kelly, how's it going?
Hello. Hi.
It's an honor to have you back on the podcast.
Oh, yes. The honor's all mine. It's great to be here with you in our closet.
This is our closet, aka the auxiliary Shubio. This is the one I have a second guest on the studio in-person closet. And I'm excited to have you back on the show because a lot of people have been clamoring for your return. It's been a minute since you've been on, and people have been wondering, where's the Kelly? Well, Kelly has been saved for episode 8 in traditional TNO form, which is always having you for the end of something. So we've had you now on for the end of the TV show.
Wow, I'm so honored.
Yeah. Now, have we asked you, I think we've asked you all the questions. Have we asked you the what is your fatal flaw question yet? That's one of the newer ones. And I don't know if you've been on the show since someone sent that in to me as a suggestion.
I think that you asked me this question, and I think I gave the perfect interview answer of, I try too hard, and I'm too perfect, and
course.
I work too much.
Classic,
But actually that was, and I think I then mentioned this as well, that actually was my year-end review 2 years in a row was, you tried too hard to make this perfect. Just make it work.
Well, there you go. It's valid. It is legit. I am very excited to talk about the finale with you. Overall, what were just your thoughts about episode 8 before we dive into it further?
I thought it was a really good episode. I thought it was a very fun ending. A lot of action in the last episode. And I was just so excited to see how they ended it. I was excited to see the Ares fight, which we get to. I was excited to see Luke come back, which we get to. A lot of really exciting things, and I think they did it very well.
I agree. So let's get into it. Episode 8 starts, and it's funny because it's something I talked about with Johnny in our previous episode, which is, a show means business when in one of the episodes, 5 minutes worth of stuff happens, and only then do they show the title card. But then what they did for this episode is the next level up version of that, which is title card at the start. We can't waste any time. Like, we're not taking any sort of break. The momentum will not stop. Full speed ahead all the way. You're here for Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Here's the title screen. Let's get into it. And what I love is we are picking up this episode with the continuation of where we had the last episode end, which is, oh boy, Ares fight. Here we go.
Yes.
But it really begins with the voiceover from Luke in a way that kind of mimics Percy's voiceover to start episode 1 and to start the book.
I loved this.
It's
it was
really cool.
So cool.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that you enjoyed it since you are a fan of the book from other people's perspective fan.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, if I like a series, I'll read it from any character's perspective.
Okay, you are going to read I was trying to think of a boring character in Percy Jackson to give as an example, but I don't think there's any boring ones.
I mean, for example, Puffs was a boring character of Hogwarts telling the story of Harry Potter, and it was amazing.
It's a really good play. It's a really, really solid play. So what is also so smart about this is before the fight begins, we get the training flashback of Percy, so it all makes sense. I've been wondering about this for episodes and episodes. How the heck is Percy Jackson, who has 0 sword training, going to beat Ares in a fight? Oh, that's how. Because he's already had sword training with Luke.
I believe the last time we saw him doing any kind of training at Camp Half-Blood, he was in the process of trying to figure out who his godly parent was by looking at his talents, and he had 0 talents.
Yeah, it was a montage of failure.
Yes.
Not exactly what you want.
Yeah, it was a montage of failure and funny dances.
Yes.
So it didn't instill a lot of confidence about his Ares' sword fighting abilities.
Right. So we have Luke explaining fighting and all those related things to Percy while training him in sword fighting. And there's one point where Percy says, he's trying to get out of it, basically. He says, oh, and then Luke finishes a sentence with, but you're weak and want to quit, which is a great, like, playful, friendly taunt. And I also love that the retort to this from Percy is him, while still fighting, saying lines with emphasis on each swing or block or whatever. He's trying to say, when am I ever going to use this in my daily life? Which is just such a funny parallel to school, like when people wonder, when am I ever going to use this in my life? And it's like, look, man, you're going to have to fight off some stuff. Luke was exactly correct. And one of the things that Luke puts forth is that there's certain rules to fighting, and one example of a rule is single combat. We cut back to the present, and Percy suggests single combat, and it causes Ares, Annabeth, and Grover to all say, what? Which is hilarious.
But then causes Ares to laugh maniacally like he thinks this is the silliest thing that anybody could suggest, which was so good. Such good acting, such good character development. Oh, I loved it.
I agree. And it also kind of sets the stage for how Percy would win this fight and how Ares would lose, because he's already going into the fight with such arrogance and such, oh my goodness, confidence that it makes sense that when Ares does have the chance in the fight multiple times just to get a quick slash on Percy and go, I win, it's not about that for Ares. He's so confident that he doesn't want to just beat him in the fight. He wants to embarrass him. He wants to hurt him. He doesn't want to just go, okay, bing, and then do like fencing where you just have to get one little touch on him to score a point. He wants to really milk it, and that's why in the fight he has multiple opportunities to slash him, but he instead pushes him or kicks him or whatever, does the cool body slam thing.
Yeah, he's not fighting for his life. He's fighting for a point here.
Yeah.
And that makes him make some arrogant moves.
Yes, indeed. So Percy, before the fight begins, really tries to get Ares to be upset. We get a classic example of classic book Percy Jackson taunting to get people in the wrong state of mind as they pick up basketball trash talker. I love this. I'm glad we have it. And Percy gets Ares upset by saying that the whole plan wasn't even Ares' plan. He didn't think it up. He just went along with it. It was all Kronos. He's just a pawn. That gets Ares really upset. And then he ends his reply with, he says something like, I'm going to kick your butt, blah, blah, blah. But then he just says, say hi to your mommy for me, which is such a good line.
That's what Ares says back to Percy.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So Ares throws in a little bit with the mix, with a really painful gut punch of, when you die, say hi to your mom.
Say hi to your mommy for me. It's such to add the mommy is so good. But then the fight begins. Ares does a really cool, I don't know if there's a wrestling move for it, but a big old slam that I'm sure Edge had tons of experience doing over the many, many years that he was a wrestler and still is. And then there's a point in the fight where he kicks Percy, but he kicks Percy into some water. Poor decision,
Ares.
Not the best strategy there. And then here comes a big wave. A huge wave comes from the ocean, and Percy reminds Ares of something that he had said earlier in episode 5. He says something like, you keep thinking you know me, but one day you'll find out who I am. And when he says you'll find out who I am, he's got the big wave behind him. And the look of anger on Walker's face is just such a good look. He looks so angry, and the shot of it is so nice, especially with the wave behind him. It's just such a really, really cool shot.
This fight is so good. The acting is so good. The sword fighting is so good. My only complaint here is I could have watched an hour of just this fight, and it was so quick.
Yeah.
I mean, we got it spread out a little bit by having the Luke flashback and then having some trash talk, but the fight itself is pretty quick. However, I understand not everybody's here for an hour of swordplay.
I feel like everyone would have liked a longer fight. I wanted a longer fight. I feel like the fight in the book, like the actual fight itself, isn't super long, but I feel like the build up to the fight is more, because we have some changes where in the book they fight in Santa Monica.
Mhm.
And there's more stuff going on because there's like the cop car. There's the thing about his weapon changing to look like different things. Like it's a baseball bat at one point, then turns into the sword. There's a lot more setup. We get more of Percy's battle instincts and the ADHD coming into play and him noticing more stuff. And I think there's like cop cars and explosions and all this other stuff. Like there's more background stuff going on.
But the fight itself is still pretty short.
Right. I think the fight itself is still pretty short. I was disappointed that all of that other stuff wasn't there, but I also understand that it's really hard to do all that kind of stuff. This is one of those things where I think when you're going from book to screen adaptation, it's just one of those, you can't make something as cool as what you see in your head. And I think they just kind of had to simplify it. And also, this fight is taking place on the Montauk Beach and not the beach in California. And at first I was really confused by that. But then when you see what happens later in the episode, it makes sense. So I still liked the fight. I still thought the fight itself was cool. It was quick. I was a little disappointed because there wasn't all the other stuff that I really enjoyed from reading this fight in the book, but it's still pretty cool and it's fun to see.
Right. The police background and the explosions and the idea of what are the mortals seeing through the mist, I think was a really fun aspect of the books. However, and you and I debated this for a while, are they in Santa Monica or are they in Montauk?
Right.
The fact that they're in Montauk helps to move some of the plot after the fight along.
Right. It's one of those things where at first I was confused and then by the end of the episode it makes sense. So I get it. The fight is still pretty cool. And also it's one of those things where when you think about the TV show, we have a literal professional wrestler fighting a 12-year-old kid. When you're reading a book, you can make that feel more believable. But like it would be hard to draw out a fight between a 12-year-old kid and a grown adult whose career is based off of fighting. But then also in the context of the plot, it's going to be hard visually to make a 12-year-old demigod fighting an infinite-year-old literal god. It's hard to make that look convincing. So to make the fight go on too long, I feel like there's too many traps of things either looking stale or not being believable. I think for what happens, which is basically after the wave crashes Ares, there's a point where Percy rushes up, Ares blocks one thing, and then Percy gets him in the ankle real quick, and then you see the ichor spilling out. Like when you think about logistically how Percy would win this fight, it had to have been something like that. It could not have been a longer fight and make sense. Yes, Percy has some sword training, but like if the fight is longer, Ares wins the fight. Yes. It has to be quick.
Exactly. It has to be quick for Percy to win. Percy's looking for a surprise, a chance, an opportunity. Ares is just looking to wear him down, which he will do very easily.
Right.
I'm just saying from the perspective of, I loved this fight, that I want more fight.
I agree. And I hope that the general audience's response is, yes, I would have liked more, but I recognize that that's just not possible for a finale that has so much happen in it. So many things happen.
And you mentioned too, the wave that comes up over Percy. It's very cool because you can see it forming a bubble around him so that the wave doesn't knock him down.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Oh, you didn't see that?
No, that's
It looks
cool.
like it's kind of like breaking around him.
Oh, I didn't notice
that. So it's
that.
not really, that's why it doesn't knock him over.
Yeah.
It looks like there's some lines on either side of him where the wave's kind of breaking around him and then knocks down Ares so that he can come in and just like with a quick jab to the ankle. So cool.
Right. I still think it's cool. I hope people recognize, yes, we all would have been down for a 7-hour finale and a 38 episode season, but it's just not realistic and you're going to lose some stuff.
Yeah.
And it's fine. But I'm glad that the show seems to be doing well. And if we get future seasons and stuff, then we'll have to see, do we get more than 8 episodes? Are they more okay with doing longer run times? Because you'll see that with shows like Ted Lasso first season, all the episodes are pretty short. By season 3, it was like hour-long episodes on the reg. So I think they'll have more flexibility, especially once the actors are above 18 and it's not as hard to film stuff with kid actors. Like, I could see a world where season 5 is 12 episodes and they're all an hour. Like, that could feasibly happen.
Yeah.
But Ares after the fight is also amazing because he gives them a very sarcastic clap of congratulations, saying that basically the only thing he's won from this fight is a lifelong enemy.
Yep.
Then he does the transition into the divine form. They look away. And then we see the Montauk cabin is there. And I didn't notice this when it was in the dark version, like when it was at night in episode 1, but it also has stained glass. So we have stained glass in the big house, and that was a really cool thing with that stained glass patio. Now we have stained glass here at the cabin. Lots of good stained glass stuff. And I gotta say, like, I don't know how bad that septic tank smells, but it's like the only cabin on the beach. It seems to be in a prime location, like a mostly empty beach. Like, there must be a really smelly septic tank if they're staying there. It looks like a nice place.
It does look very nice. It also, though, as he's walking up, you'll see there's like a broken down fence, and it doesn't look like maybe the nicest, most well-kept beach. I mean, to me, it looks like an awesome beach.
Well, you are from Texas,
Yes,
where the
for
beaches
me,
are the worst.
Where the first beach I think I ever went to was Galveston.
Oh, loose definition of the word beach.
To be fair, we didn't go to Galveston to go to the beach. We just saw that there was water there. But
It's so bad.
it still is a very nice beach. Also, you forgot to mention when Ares changed form, he dropped the helm as he promised.
Yes,
He
did.
dropped the helm, which Annabeth picks up, and they walk towards the Montauk house.
The helm, which does look super cool.
Yeah.
It's a very cool helm. Prop department doing very, very well. So they are in the Montauk cabin, and then Alecto is there. And I love this, and I'm excited that she is back. We didn't get enough Megan Mullally. To have another episode of Megan Mullally is great. And I love the conversation that they have there. They walk in, and then the radio is playing some stuff, and you jotted down the entire quote, right?
Yes, I watched it again without you because you don't like subtitles. So I watched it
to
again.
be fair, when I watch these in prep for the show, I watched them once and then a second time with subtitles to make sure I don't miss anything.
Oh, okay.
So I notice it, but I do. You are such a big subtitles person, and I can't stand them.
I know you can't.
I cannot stand them.
So first of all, after the fight, the reason they look towards the house is because somebody whispers into the wind, Percy. And the subtitles tell us that it's Sally who said Percy.
Do we think that was an Alecto trick thing? Or
That's
do we
what
think
I
it
was thinking.
Actually, yeah.
I think it was a Lecto trick, lure him into the
Mimicking,
house kind of
sure.
thing. But the subtitle said it was said by Sally. Then you come in and the radio is saying, authorities are warning the public to expect severe travel delays as hundreds of flights are grounded as the FAA closes most of the country's airspace in response to violent seismic activity. The radio is very, very low, so you don't actually hear that if the subtitles aren't on.
Right.
You're welcome. They go on to say that this phenomenon is known as ionospheric disturbances and are typically caused by solar flares. So that's our first telling that the War of the Gods is going on right now, and it's kind of touching the mortal world in a way.
Yes, and Alecto makes some sort of comment, oh, it was smart of your dad to use earthquakes to clear out the sky. So kind of commenting on how the war is shaking out. Then Percy slams the helm down on the table, and this is a recurring theme of episodes directed by Jet Wilkinson because the shield gets slammed on the table at the diner, and then the helm gets slammed on the table here, and then later in the episode when they go to the elevator on Olympus, they slam the bolt on the desk at the Empire State Building. So funny. Lots
It makes
of
a very
big metal.
satisfying clunk as it goes down.
Such a good thud. Really good thud. I would love to. I didn't get to ever talk to anyone from the sound department, but if I ever do get to interview sound department people, I will ask about the thuds because they're really good thuds. And I want to know if they recorded their own thuds or if these were existing thuds. That'll be a question I'll have to ask when I do press junkets for season 2. I hope everyone please still contact me again. I want to do more of this. But then after dropping the helm down, Alecto asks, what are you doing? Percy says, living up to my end of the bargain. Tell Hades I expect him to do the same. And he does say this all cool like, but then he does pause and finish with, please. And this whole conversation rules. Megan Mullally rules. And something else that I think rules is Percy explains that the last time the gods had a war, it started World War II, or it was the reason that World War II happened. And this is such a better version of the demigods started World War II, because it's never fun to be like, well, Hitler was a child of Hades. Like, it's so much better to just say that the war created another war as opposed to particular demigod children started a war.
Right. It makes it less problematic for people to say that they're a child of Ares or a child of Hades, who we can assume in the book version would be considered the Nazi side.
Right. I think this is an example probably of Rick doing oh yeah, if I could do it again, I probably would have changed that. Like, feels like a thing where he heard some commentary or read some forum a year after making the book. I was like, oh, I didn't mean that. Oh, So I think it makes sense. Alecto leaves. Percy tells Grover and Annabeth that he wants to go to Olympus because he wants to warn Zeus about the bigger picture. Annabeth is confused. She thinks the quest is done. We failed it. Why bother? And he says that this is bigger than the quest. And this, I think, is just such a good change. I know I was anxious and confused by the deadline passing after episode 6.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of viewers were very upset. And this is why my take was, let's just see what they're doing here. I'm sure there's a reason. Yeah. And this is the reason. And I love this as the reason because it seems like an overall intentional choice in this season of the show was, let's get more of the overarching plot in it. And I think that's good because I feel like I gave more leniency to the book series, knowing there are 5 and knowing that like the big picture would come into play eventually. Like there's a little bit of stuff there. And then book 2 kind of, but then book 3, it's like, oh yeah, dude. I think it is smarter for a TV show that you're trying to bring in new viewers for. You want to get the stakes set up as early as possible.
Yes.
And I think it really does drive it home where Percy is basically saying, well, I don't care about the quest anymore. We're way past quests at this point. I think it's really smart. And I think it's true to something that Rick posted before episode 7 aired, where he was saying like, everybody don't worry. We're still going to get to the same endpoint. And I think that this is it. Like at the end of the day, nothing has really changed that's truly important. Does it matter that they failed the quest? No, it really doesn't. And I think that the emotional stakes that they have brought in by making these changes are great. I liked being kept on my toes after episode 6. It's fun not to know exactly what's going on. And I hope that a lot of the people who had the complaints about that and the 4 pearls thing, now with these episodes being complete, I hope they realize, oh, I should have just been patient. Because I think this is really cool.
I think that beyond just setting up for the larger overarching plot, this actually does more to develop Percy's character.
100%.
Because in the start, he was talking to Luke about glory and how glory is something that you get through a quest. And he was saying, oh, so if I complete the quest and I get glory, then my parent has to listen to me. Or if I complete the quest and I get glory, then the gods will notice me, kind of thing. And that was part of his reason for going on the quest was for this idea of glory that Luke had instilled in him. The other reason was for his mom, obviously, but part of it was the glory of finishing the quest. The quest is failed, but he still wants to do it. So I think it shows a certain amount of character development that he still wants to finish the quest. I also think it shows development for Annabeth too, who has been very quest hungry as well. When you take away the quest, it develops the character of these demigods even further to show that it's a sense of duty rather than a sense of glory.
Right. And I think it kind of puts Percy and Luke even farther at odds because Luke is the one saying glory, glory, glory and all that kind of stuff. And even we know from the book, wasn't really in the show, Luke was upset that the quest he did was like a repeat of a Hercules quest. So he's all focused on that kind of stuff. Percy, in the book a little bit, but especially in the show, he doesn't care at all. Like he didn't care about the quest. He didn't want to do the quest. The only reason he did the quest was to save Sally. So now when the quest fails, he doesn't care. Told the Nereid, I don't care. And then now here he's proving I don't care. Like he has a really solid understanding of what's really important. It's making Annabeth second guess that, which is nice. You know, they're kind of doing the thing where they bring out the best in each other.
Right.
And I think it's really nice to see. And then the extra level above it is it's pushing Percy and Luke even farther apart, which is really good for what we're going to see later in this episode.
The other change that you brought up, the 4 pearls, I actually thought that was a really cool change as well.
So good.
The fact that Grover lost his pearl and Percy gives his mom's pearl to him makes it so much more a sign of friendship and understanding. Because it wasn't, we have 3 pearls and I'm not going to leave one of you 3 behind, you know, one of us behind. But more of, you lost yours, Grover, you messed up, but here's this second chance that I'm giving you.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool too.
And I loved how quickly and how much it was not a discussion. It was like, no, you're taking the pearl.
Right.
What's also interesting is something I didn't realize until later. in that post that Uncle Rick made, he had said the Nereid gave the pearls. So the theory is not that Poseidon had the pearls. The Nereid gave the 4. So I like that interpretation better. It seems like that's what Rick was implying. And I like it better because it doesn't make Poseidon too nice, which is like like, I think it does make sense to make him nicer in the show, because when you aren't having as much Percy internal monologue, you can't have him thinking about the complexities of Poseidon all of the time.
Right.
So I think it does make sense for the show to make him a little bit nicer, but not too much nicer, because he is still supposed to be like not the best. And I think they are kind of hitting that groove nicely, maybe like a little past nice for my liking. But when I finally saw that post from Rick, it was on Threads. So I didn't see it until like later, because I don't have Threads, because I was afraid of all of the 4 privacy things you had to accept. I was like, I'm out on this. But
I'm just afraid of another social media app.
I just don't need another one. I just don't need it. I do Twitter and Instagram. I'm good. Sherry runs a TikTok. I'm fine. But I like that, because then it's one less thing in the like Poseidon's too nice category. But anyway.
Yeah. Probably like everybody else, though, when they handed Percy 4 pearls, I gasped out loud and went, what? That makes it too easy. But
you gotta wait. And I think episode 8 is a perfect... Yeah, this is why you just wait. Like, there's so... Oh, God, I just hope everyone who gave episode 6 crap goes to their room and thinks about what they did.
We just gotta trust Uncle Rick has his hands in this, and it's not gonna go off the rails.
No.
We just gotta trust the process.
Oh, thank you for bringing in a basketball reference.
Yeah, I did that.
Thank you so much. And truly, like, not to be old man yells at cloud, but I do think it is a little bit of like, I'm not even going to blame it on an age thing of like older generation versus younger generation. I think it's truly just like the types of media that people consume is what leads to that kind of stuff. Where do you see the complaints about that kind of thing? TikTok, Instagram comments, people who watch Reels and TikToks who can't wait a week to see what happens. Where do you not see a lot of negative comments? The Discord for the newest Olympian, where people are more okay with listening to something that's an hour long and waiting for that. I think it's totally fine. So I think it's just like a difference in the way people consume stuff. Some people might not be used to waiting weeks in between shows. They might be used to the Netflix model where
I love the Netflix model.
I don't. I really don't.
I love it and I don't love it. There are some shows that drop and I want to binge the whole thing immediately. However, when Great British Bake Off is on and I watch it on Friday nights over my phone with my sister, I find that really fun, because then once a week I have this thing to sit down with and watch. And sometimes I like weekly make like a baked good, which is a very loose definition. Sometimes my quote baked good is like a Chobani Flip or something like that.
Which is yogurt with mix-ins.
One time I was like, this bowl of grapes is my baked good. I think I made a baked good, like an actual baked good, twice.
I like the weekly model because I feel like when it all comes out at once, it makes the show feel like homework. It's like, oh, I got to watch all this right now. And especially, I'm so glad I don't watch Stranger Things anymore. But like the new seasons are like every episode is 6 hours and there's 12 of them. Like, oh my God, I have to sleep. I have to eat. Don't you people have jobs? Anyway.
Yeah, this is why it's hard for you and I to binge certain series that are already out together, because I'm of that model of, yeah, let's watch 10 in one day. And you get to this end of the second one, you're like, that's enough. And I'm like, but there's more available. And I want to know what happens.
I have patience. So the next thing that happens is Annabeth gives Percy her necklace as good luck.
You missed my favorite line.
Oh, what's your favorite line?
My favorite line is when Annabeth says, you can't go to Zeus, he'll kill you. And Percy says, I'm done running from monsters.
Oh, yeah, it is a really
calling
good one.
Zeus the monster.
Yeah, it's a really
which is
good
another
line.
callback to, I believe, the first episode where his mom tells him not everybody who's a hero looks like a hero and not everybody who's a monster looks like a monster.
Yeah, it's a great
It
line.
was a great line.
It's a really, really good one. So then Annabeth gives Percy her necklace as a sign of good luck.
Is her necklace lucky or something?
I don't know. It's cute at the very least. And
it's cute. Is it lucky? I don't think so.
I think it is at least a fun thing because it was in the promotional images for Percy and in some of the social media clips that were going around of Percy going in the elevator. elevator for certain things, a lot of people were like, is he wearing Annabeth's necklace? Oh my goodness. And I think that is cool to at least have something that makes people go, what? It's cute. It's cute. I think it's cute. And I like it. It feels, I don't know, feels high school, like
wear my
varsity jacket, borrow my sweatshirt, like take my class ring and put it on your necklace. I don't know. I thought it was cute and I like it. I don't know that it necessarily has any relevance from the book, but I just think it's a cute little thing.
Yeah, it's cute.
Mm-hmm. Grover also after this double checks.
Funny.
Are we sure that this can't just be an email? It's so good. And as someone who thankfully does not have to have any boring meetings anymore, I was always in my engineering days a huge proponent of, couldn't this meeting have been an email? So I love that Grover is on team. Maybe we can just solve problems with an email. So Percy goes to the Empire State Building. I like that they make no reference of how he got there. And I think that's another reason why the Montauk thing makes sense. You don't have to worry about the flights and all that kind of stuff.
Because at this point, Zeus is still waging war. And as we've heard from the radio, all flights are grounded right now. So it wouldn't make too much sense for him to be flying across the country at this point. So another reason why we're in Montauk.
Right. I'm guessing he hopped on the LIRR and got his way in to the Empire State Building. But I think it's good. And I think, especially for a finale, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, let's just get to Olympus. I don't care. I don't care.
Let's keep moving.
Let's just go. So he gets there. He goes to the lobby, slams the bolt down. I was, again, super duper tiny minor thing. I was a little sad that the security guard wasn't reading a book, because that's one of those fun things from the book. He was clearly reading Harry Potter in the first one.
Oh.
They make a joke about that. It's like the security guard was reading a book with a wizard on it or whatever. And then later I did some sleuthing and I believe the next time they go, he's reading Twilight.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah, so like that's really funny. It would have been a cool thing, maybe too distracting or whatever, but like if he was reading one of the Rick Riordan Presents books, or if he was reading like the Kane Chronicle, like it would have been really cool if he was reading something and everyone could have been like, you know,
or if he was listening to the new Olympian podcast or something like that. Like,
look, I will any sort of thing. It's funny. I have to continue to manifest things because it works. Apparently in episode 31 or something, I was like, Disney, invite me to the premiere. And then they did. So the fact that I have had like conversations with the production people, I don't have close enough connections at this point in time where I think I will have any involvement in the show. But if by season 5, I could be an extra or something, that would be so cool. And we're now at the point where it's like, again, which has always been the thing. Even when I started the podcast, I just knew like, I don't know if I'll ever get Uncle Rick on the podcast, but it's not impossible. Maybe low percentage chance. I think now much higher percentage chance. But this is the same kind of thing where it's like, I don't know that this will ever happen, but it's not impossible.
But it's not a 0% chance.
We've entered not impossible territory. Maybe it's 1%, but that's more than 0. So gets there before he slams down the bolt. The security guard says like, oh, the tour's over there. He says, I'm not here for the tour. Slams the bolt. The guy looks shocked. And then he says he's here to see Zeus. Quote, I don't have an appointment, which is great.
Do you ever picture something from a book and then see the manifestation of that either in fan art or in a book cover or in a movie or something, and realize the illustration of it is so off from what you thought it was going to look like, but it's entirely your fault?
What did you think about the Empire State Building lobby?
No, the bolt. I thought the bolt was going to be a canister.
That's how it's described in the book.
Containing lightning.
Yeah, it says it's more like battery looking. Yeah, that's how they describe it in the book. It's a canister.
Okay, so it's not my fault.
No, it's not your fault. It is Rick Riordan's fault.
He pulled out the bolt, and also they had like a bolt prop at the premiere that we looked at. I looked at that prop at the premiere and I was like, wait, what? What was I reading when I thought it was like a test tube full of, like a large test tube full of electricity? Because that's what I thought it was going to be.
I think that's what it is.
Oh, okay.
You're good.
Not my fault.
No, you're fine.
Gotcha. Okay. That does make me feel better because it wouldn't be the first time that something was described and then I see some fan art of it and I'm like, oh, I read that completely differently.
So Percy gets to Olympus. I'm glad we had the thing with Hermes in the elevator earlier in the season so that we don't lose out on Percy taking the elevator.
Yeah.
But I think it's fine. To have a big tonal shift would be strange. But Percy gets to Olympus. It looks very cool. It very much looks like one of those final levels that we played from Kingdom Hearts 3. I forget what the name is. It's like that weird thing, but all the like white stacked upon levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Hercules level, and I was like,
No.
it doesn't really look like that.
No.
It does look like one of the Final Fantasy levels, though.
Yeah. I forget what it is. Some like Latin name, which I maybe should know because I took Latin in high school, but Percy is at Olympus, and then we cut back to another conversation between him and Luke. And Percy is basically slowly figuring out Luke's deal about how demigods are created to do things that the gods can't do. And Percy asks Luke, well, then shouldn't the gods be afraid of us? Just as scared of us as we are of them. And Luke says exactly, but then warns Percy not to be small and scary, because things that are small and scary get squished. And he relates that to Annabeth's fear of spiders, which I'm glad that canonically got in there. And especially because we didn't get the mechanical spiders in the Tunnel of Love.
Right.
Yeah, which it's funny. I got to speak with Daphne Olive, the staff writer for the show. And this was something that isn't in the interview that we did that'll come up later. But about the mechanical spiders, Daphne's just like, we just couldn't do the spiders. Like, we just can't. This would have been way harder to do the spiders.
Can't do it all.
No, it's CGI. Like it's a whole mess. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's good enough. But then they got to do the chair thing, which I think is just cooler.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just love it. She's like, we just couldn't do the spiders.
Yeah.
But we get the spider stuff in there. So then we come back to Percy at Olympus, and we get Lance Reddick as Zeus, which is so cool, but also so sad because Lance has passed, and it's really bittersweet. But he's so freaking good.
He's so good.
So good. I'm glad.
Amazing performance.
Yes, I'm glad we got the performance, but it is sad that we're not going to get any more of it. But I'm glad we at least got this because, oh my God.
He's very, very good.
What a performance. And I got to tip my hat to Walker as well. He was acting very well in this scene. He was doing a good job. It is not easy. I'm sure it is not easy to be in a scene with such a talented, powerful, intimidating actor as Lance Reddick, who's being intimidating and powerful as a character.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And
so
your
good.
character is supposed to be sassy back at him.
Right.
Yeah.
Hi, can you just talk smack to Lance Reddick? Like wild. Absolutely wild. The one thing I didn't like in this scene.
Yeah.
The thrones.
Yeah.
They went with what they kind of did in the movie. I don't know if you can see all the other thrones. It looks like Zeus's is bigger than everybody else's. At least it's better than the movie. I think everybody's throne is exactly the same.
Yeah. And I think they all look like they're carved with different things that might be different to their personalities or something. But yeah, it's not the way it's described in the book with a fishing chair and a workman's chair and all of that kind of really cool, funny stuff.
Right. And I think, I don't know.
And they're all small too. They're not like the large God-sized chairs.
I'm okay with that. I think the 10-foot thing is weird.
Okay.
I just think like it doesn't contribute anything. I think the gods can be scary enough without having to be 10 feet tall. I mean, look at how terrifying Lance Reddick was in this scene. You can do other things like when he screams boy and thunder. Boy and thunder shit.
So
like
good.
you don't need to make them 10 feet tall. You don't have to deal like the CGI. It's just weird. Like it looks so bad in the movie. I'm sure the show would have done a better job of it. They could have done the Lord of the Rings thing with it, but I think it's fine. I don't think the 10-foot tall thing really adds anything. And even when I read the books, I never really imagined them being 10 feet tall because I was like, this is just extra. I don't know. I just don't think it's necessary.
I never really imagined the gods that big, but I always imagined their chairs that big.
I mean, Zeus's chair was huge, even though he wasn't huge.
Yeah, it wasn't for a 10-foot person, though.
Yeah, but it was not for a 5 to 6 foot person either.
No, yeah.
But I did miss the fun, whimsical chairs. I think that's really a fun thing in the book that it's like kind of found its way into the series. And I think this is an overall critique that I think is valid, is that like this show is definitely not as goofy as the books. And I think that's an intentional choice because I believe with this show, they're trying to make it like a franchise that's cool.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to come in as a fantasy series and have like a bunch of jokes and stuff and then not feel childish. They're trying to appeal to an adult audience, a young audience, people who've read the books and people who haven't. And I think it's kind of hard to check all 4 boxes with a bunch of the like whimsy and humor things. I would also love to see them in there. I can see why they didn't.
Yeah.
And I think maybe in future seasons they will have more hijinks and stuff. Like it's going to be hard not to do that when you have Wedding Dress Grover in book 2. So I think they might have more confidence to do more silly stuff. And there is still silly things like the what is love thing. The driving out of the
there's
parking
tons of
garage.
silly.
Right. There's tons of silly. There's
parking
not
garage scene.
like
So
good.
funny.
There are silly elements in the show. It's definitely not as much as the book, and I think that they are getting rid of some of the quirkier things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sad not to see the Thrones there, but like given the tone of the rest of the show, I get it. But just like as a one-for-one thing that I wanted to see, thing that wasn't there, I would have loved to see the Thrones.
Yes.
Something I did really like from this scene, though, and it's been true throughout the whole season, is they really make the emphasis about family there. After Percy warns about Kronos and Zeus doesn't seem too bothered by it, about Kronos, Zeus says, I know where he is, Kronos. I put him there. I know who he is. He's my father.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I, on the other hand, had a different reaction. I never really imagined the Olympians as a family because Percy has said to us many times, don't try to think too hard about how people are related on the god side. It's just a bit of a mess. So I've never really thought of them as a family. It was only recently when I started reading Percy Jackson's
Greek gods.
Yeah, Percy Jackson's Greek gods that I started to know a little bit more about the origin stories of mythology and then maybe saw them as family. So for me, I've never really viewed them as family. I've viewed them as a collection of people because that's how they act too, is a collection of people.
Mm-hmm. But I like bringing the family stuff into the show because I think it makes some of the overarching themes more powerful, like Sally as a mother and how the gods can be better. And I think it's all building up to what will make a lot of sense in book 5 when Percy is given the choice by the gods to have anything he wants and he chooses, you all have to be better parents. I think, again, that's another example of taking a book 5 thing, setting it up from the jump so that the payoff makes more sense and feels more earned. Because it made sense with book 5, but from book 1, Percy's big thing is, you know what would solve all these problems? If everyone just acted like a functional, real family where we cared about each other.
Yeah.
So for him to kind of be on that train early on, I think it makes a lot of sense and I really like it.
Yeah.
So one thing that I just had here after Lance Reddick delivered these lines I read in my notes, everything Lance Reddick says is so cool. Please read me a nutrition facts label. But Percy says that the war can continue. That's where Zeus goes, boy, and the whole thunder. Oh, it's amazing.
Very cool.
They keep going. I just kept writing down Lance Reddick quotes because he said them so cool. Like when he said, like, I will not be weakened by my brothers. Like, oh, just so good. And Percy, who is not backing down, says you already have been. And then he continues saying that Ares, your son, turned on you the moment someone stronger showed up. What do you think the rest of your family's going to do? Like, it's really good. And again, when he's talking about Kronos, he says, what do you think is going to happen when your dad shows up? So really driving the family point home and really talking smack to Zeus, true to Percy Jackson form. I found it funny, but I've always loved it. Just really talking smack to someone who would have no problem killing him. And then Zeus proves that by almost zapping him with the Master Bolt. But Poseidon comes in to save him, to stop the zap, and he comes in to surrender. While they're talking about the surrender, Zeus calls Percy forbidden, and both you and I, when we first watched this, were like,
get off your high and mighty horse.
Look
there,
at the pot
Zeus.
calling the kettle a pot. Like, But Zeus, after calling out Percy for being forbidden, Poseidon says, yeah, just like your Thalia, who serves as an inspiration for demigod heroes, Perseus is one of those heroes. And then they start talking in ancient Greek, asking with them talking about who knows about Kronos, and Zeus reveals that everyone knows about Kronos. So Zeus then says that he will gather all the Olympians. They will have a meeting to discuss his victory and then talk about next steps. So I love that Zeus is staying true to form where he's just such a jerk. He is such a jerk. They've established that very, very well.
And Poseidon is amazing. Perfect casting, perfectly dressed, perfect voice acting. Very, very good.
He's doing a really good job. I'm intrigued to see what they do going forward with Zeus. I would guess that they just have a new actor play Zeus and not really make any mention of it. I don't think they're going to do something about like, oh, the gods can take any form and I look different, but everyone else is the same. Like, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they'll just recast someone with a similar vibe. My personal vote, Sterling K. Brown.
Sterling K. Brown is great.
He'd be so good.
That would be a very good casting. Yeah, I agree. I think that they will go with the approach of change it and not really talk about it.
100%. Then Poseidon and Percy start talking. Poseidon to Percy says, looks like obedience doesn't come naturally to you. And he says that he's partially to blame for that because the sea doesn't like to be restrained.
So good.
When you watched this the first time, didn't you think he said the seed does not like to be restrained?
Yeah.
Like he was talking about like, oh yeah, my guys, baby.
This is why I need the subtitles. Otherwise, he's going, my seed doesn't like to be restrained. I was like, whoa there, this is a kid's show.
All right, Poseidon. So then from this conversation, we learn that Sally taught Percy ancient Greek, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense since we've already had the thing where Sally taught him the stories. So Sally teaching him the ancient Greek makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get another example of a character thinking that they know what Percy is going to say or ask for. Poseidon thinks that Percy is going to ask him because he says, can I ask you a question? And Poseidon thinks he's going to ask him about returning Sally from Hades. Percy didn't want to know about that. Percy was asking Poseidon if he ever dreams because Ares said that gods don't dream. And Poseidon says, of course we dream. Ares is a moron. Haven't you noticed? And then Percy asks Poseidon if he ever dreams about Sally. And we get such a look of longing from Toby Stevens as Poseidon. Oh, man. But then he takes out a pearl and drops it on the ground, says goodbye so that Percy has to go back to camp. This is a good time for us to take our break for the final lightning brief of the TV show episodes where we'll talk about fun updates with the podcast, such as our upcoming live shows and stuff and the new merch that's back in stock.
Woo!
All that good stuff. Merch designed by Kelly Schubert right here. Yeah. Get your stuff. But yeah, we'll be back after a quick break. Hello and welcome to the lightning brief, the final lightning brief for the episodes directly about episodes, but not necessarily the final thing about the TV show anyway. We are here and I've got a couple of updates for you all. First, this episode here is going to be the last Wednesday episode that we do now that the show has run its course. We're just going to get back to posting stuff on Mondays. At some point in the near future, I'm going to take a week off just because I am exhausted. I've been posting so much stuff, but I got to figure out exactly when that's going to be. So if you just go to thenewestolympian.com/about, you can see what the next 4 episodes are. And I might have some TBDs on there if I'm not exactly sure quite yet, but you can always check there to see what the future holds for the podcast. As I've mentioned a few times before, we'll do the stuff for the TV shows. We'll do the Sea of Monsters movies. Then we'll do the Lightning Thief. And then we'll get into Heroes of Olympus. It's going to be very, very fun. Also, another reminder, the Florida shows are coming up very soon. Torrida is just a week and a day away. If you're listening to this on the day it came out, February 8th, 9th, and 10th, we will be in Gainesville and Tampa and Orlando with 3 different shows, so you can come to all of them, and tickets are live at thenewestolympian.com/live. Johnny will be the guest, and you can see what we are doing at each show on the Instagram if you go to Newest Olympian's Instagram page at Newest Olympian. Later in this episode, there will be something where I mention a potential Instagram crossover video with my friend who bakes professionally being posted. That is posted, so you can head on over to @NewestOlympian on Instagram if you want to see that reel, and if you want to see the recipe as well, because the comment section has the full recipe for blue chocolate chip cookies. And I'm going to put a special version of it on Patreon because I had made a video to it, but I had used Dua Lipa's Levitating, and then Instagram was like, actually, you can't do that. We have copyright things, but then you can just put in Dua Lipa's Levitating through their app and then not get the copyright infringement. But I had one that used the instrumental track and then the song and all that. I'll put that up on Patreon. Speaking of the Patreon, I want to thank the folks who have joined the Patreon most recently. Thank you to everyone who has joined the Patreon at any point in time, people who are supporting currently, who have supported in the past, people who are thinking about supporting, people who are going to support in the future. All that stuff is just fantastic, and I cannot thank you all enough. Thank you, and thank you to the folks who have joined most recently. Shout out to our newest God Tier patrons, Kate Bowe, Marsha Mosley, Leora, Avi, and Shannon McGill. And shout out to our newest Demigod Tier patrons, Sophia, Aspen is the best sister ever, You're Welcome Rowan, Elisa Moore, and Jake K. Thank you all so much for your support. May Hermes bless you that if you're ever taking a taxi, it does not take a long time for the cab to get to you and then for you to get to your destination. If you're all caught up on the newest Olympian and you're looking for a new podcast to listen to, I make a whole bunch of podcasts. I'm an independent podcast boy. I think you would like some of the other shows that I make. And one that I make and I co-host with my buddy Adam Amawala is Horse. It is a comedic basketball podcast where we remove all of the gatekeeping around basketball and just help you understand some of the funnier things going on with the leagues currently and in history. We talk about current basketball things going on, WNBA, NBA, and then we also share fun stories from history. So it is a good, goofy little podcast. And even if you don't know anything about sports, come on in. The show is for all. You can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts by searching for Horse or by going to our website, horsehoops.com. Now, before we wrap up here, unless you're listening on Patreon where you get ad-free episodes, you're going to hear words from a few sponsors who make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of those ads will be read by me and others of them won't be. The ones that aren't read by me are inserted locally. So if you live in Mexico, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in Spanish. But once those ads are complete, we'll get back to this episode of The Newest Olympian. And we are back. Percy is back at camp, and we get a really nice situation where Percy is coming back to camp. They have the thing where it's like kind of silent, so you've got the emotional feeling of Percy, of him not really caring about the celebration. And then Annabeth runs up and hugs Percy, and this time the camera does show that he hugs her back. Mm-hmm. This was a big thing with episode 5, where in the show you can't really see that he hugs Annabeth back when she runs up and hugs him after he comes up from the water. But then they released some promotional footage, like photography pictures taken from the filming, and they put it on the social media, and it was a different angle where you could see that Percy was hugging her back, and everyone was like, you didn't show this? What are you doing? So I'm glad that this shot had it. He hugs her back.
This hug is not a romantic one.
No.
This hug is a strategic move.
That's exactly what I put in my notes. I put, ooh, a strategic hug. But yes, it's strategic because of the Clarice situation. She basically hugs Percy, and then they talk about like, wait, what's Clarice doing here? Oh, no, come over and talk with me.
Do you see her over there? Do you see what's going on?
So then they have a meeting with Luke. Oh, no. And basically, Luke and Annabeth have been teaming up and trying to figure out what they're going to do here, because it just would have been a terrible situation to accuse Clarice. Luke says that the camp was already starting to have factions, so that would have been a mess. So Luke then, who's definitely plotting for us book readers who know what's going on, he is plotting with Percy to say like, oh, let's have a secret meeting with Chiron away from the celebration and no one will know. So they go off to the side. Annabeth's saying like, okay, I'll stay back here. I'll check on Clarice. I'll make sure everything's okay. This is another strategic moment from her, but we didn't know it quite yet. But then we go off, and something you picked up on that I didn't pick up on is that where Percy and Luke have their meeting is the same place we saw earlier where they were sword fighting.
Yes, and all the flashbacks, they were in this part of the woods with that kind of colonnade behind them, and now they're back at it, which is a really, really cool callback.
Yeah, it's nice. So Percy is kind of putting it together what's going on pretty quickly into this conversation because of the prophecy, goes line by line. And I think that's something that happened in the book as well. Like, what's interesting is that this conversation in the show is much more fleshed out than it is in the book. In the book, it's pretty quick. Yeah. And then also Luke has the scorpion and everything.
Yeah, Luke is there to kill him, not to recruit him in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the direction they took this here.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I like it. I think it's good. I think people are going to like this change.
So you will go west to face the god who has turned, Ares. You'll find what is stolen and see it safely returned, the bolt. You'll be betrayed by one who you call friend. This is where Percy suddenly realizes
it's Luke.
That hasn't really happened to me yet. It's Luke. But then the question I have, and failed to save what matters most in the end, is that actually Luke? That he fails to save Luke in the end?
I think he still failed to save Sally.
He didn't. Sally comes back.
But he didn't save Sally.
Yeah, he did. He got the helm for her. He exchanged the helm for her life.
But he failed to do it in the moment. That's at least the justification in the book. And I think that holds true in the show. Like, she does still get saved after the helm is returned in both cases. But it's not really him saving her. It is Hades releasing her.
I see.
So I think it's true to form.
Here, I started to think, is Luke what mattered the most in the end? Turning Luke back to good. was what mattered the most, and he failed to do that.
I don't think so. I don't think that's what it's going to be. We'll see if the show does it later. I think that could be an interpretation, but
it doesn't get to the fourth line, and I was like, wait, but I have questions.
I don't think that they're going to do that, but I like that as a theory. I think that's fun. So once Percy puts that together with the friend line, Luke tries to say like, oh, prophecies are really vague. And I feel like Luke, I guess this was just a surprise from Percy, because I don't know if Percy ever told the full thing to Luke, so maybe he didn't have time to come up with a cool lie, but it feels a little bit like, Luke, you should have been practicing this. When you plan a comeback.
Clarice is your friend.
Yeah, like when you're coming up with a cool line in the shower, like you gotta come up with your retort here. So Luke quick panics and tries to say that they are vague, but then after Percy goes one by one, then Luke just has the turn at that moment. So the fireworks in the scene rule, and this is something I talked about with Jet that I'll put in the interviews, but they are like intentional for the lines, which is really cool. So then Luke's turn is when Percy gets to this line about you'll be betrayed. All Luke says is, I didn't know you would give them to Grover, which is so good. Yeah. Oh man, it's awesome. The facial expression from Charlie as Luke, he is very talented. And I think something that's really cool is that you can tell this whole cool guy thing was an act because he starts talking a little differently. Like he starts enunciating a little more clearly. He doesn't sound as confident. Like he sounds more shaken. And it's like, oh, right. The whole like, oh yeah, I'm the cool guy. Cleos. Oh, glory. Oh, look at me. Like that was the vocal fry Luke was definitely more of like, look how cool I am. And now it's like, okay.
He's a man with a plan. He's not the laid back cool guy.
This is a guy who will go on to canonically wear boat shoes. Like he has to not be cool. So the cool thing has to be an act. So Luke has this turn and then he pulls out the poorly named sword, Backbiter, does call it by name Backbiter.
Yeah.
I don't know if Backbiter gets name dropped in the first book. I'm not sure.
Again, it's cool. I think that they're setting up more of the story.
Totally. But
apparently now Backbiter can open portals.
Yeah. I guess that was never really a thing.
Not that I knew of.
But didn't he teleport away with a portal in
the movie?
Oh,
he had his weird little teleportation device.
Because in the book, what happens? He's just got the scorpion, he's on the ground, and Luke just like goes off into the woods.
I think so.
In my brain, I just always felt like Cronus was teleporting Luke around. But this also could just be me confusing
the labyrinth?
No. Confusing Percy Jackson with Kingdom Hearts. Because this is such a Riku move. Riku, once he starts being evil, uses his sword to open up portals.
Yeah, that's true.
So when this happened, I was just like, yeah, that tracks.
He's Riku now.
Yeah, why not? So then he talks about how it can open secret doors. The secret door effect is really cool.
Very
when it finally does open and he cuts the slash in it and it like the effect looks awesome. It looks like, I don't know what they did, but I think they actually had like some sort of like cloth and then put lights over it. Like it looks super really cool. Neat. Not only is Luke's tone cool in this scene though, Percy's tone is great because he is gutted. He is pleading with Luke that this isn't him, this is Kronos, and he's saying that Kronos got to you through the dreams, and Luke says, no, he opened my eyes to the truth. It's just great. It's really good.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Absolutely love what they did here. Then they start sword fighting a little bit. Luke says, you did get better, which is cool. I love that like Luke can't drop being his mentor, especially in the recruitment scene.
It's so sad.
And then at one point, he has Percy, I think at sword point, he says last chance. And then Percy kind of does like a slide move. He slashes. He does get Luke and immediately apologizes after, which is perfect.
Oh, it's so good.
And then Luke hits him with a bit of a cheap shot, which is also perfect.
Then Luke gets angry. Up until this point, he's been holding back a little bit because he's still trying to recruit him. Percy has now drawn a little blood. Luke's angry and he's like, all right, recruitment's over, kid. Time to end it.
Yeah, we get to see a bit of the Luke rage. And then something that had me very, very surprised, Annabeth showed up.
Yeah.
And she said she witnessed the whole thing. She heard everything.
Said, I heard everything in the tone that I imagine her saying, you were like a brother to me.
Oh, God. I mean, speaking of that line, though, I think this is going to seriously change the Luke and Annabeth dynamic.
It does change it because you can see Luke is shaken by Annabeth being there. Luke is shaken. Annabeth is hurt. Luke is maybe a little embarrassed. I mean, he immediately runs off after he sees her rather than trying to take on both of them. She doesn't have a weapon anymore. He could take them both if he wanted to.
Right.
But it really intensifies that dynamic between the two of them, I think.
I'm really intrigued to see where they go with this because I feel like this season kind of took away some of the Annabeth having a crush on Luke's stuff, which I think is fine. I don't think it's a super necessary plot, especially where it gets towards the end, especially with the age difference. Like, I think it's okay. I feel like this might have repercussions on Annabeth's behavior in books 3, 4, 5 and honestly, I think this will be a good change. I was kind of annoyed with Annabeth in books 4 and 5 when she just like wouldn't open her eyes. Like, I get that it was supposed to be a thing where she had clouded judgment about Luke, but like it went on a little much where I was annoyed by it. And I get that that's like kind of the point, but I wouldn't be opposed to that not being there as intensely in the show.
What I like about this intensification of their relationship is it's not like a longing lover's look between them. It is a brother and sister, a friend and a mentor. It's a different kind of look, and it intensifies their relationship, but not in a romantic way, which I never entirely was on board with Annabeth putting away her logic for a boy in the first place. And so, but Annabeth wavering in her logic for a friend, I do kind of see that. So it'll be a brother. It'll be interesting to see where they go with that, if they want to keep her romantically interested in him or not.
Yeah, because I think you can get all of those same stakes, like you're saying, and make it because she does love him like a brother. Like, she can have all those same things. The only thing you will lose out on is Percy Jackson jealousy boy.
Which is usually in his head anyway.
That's the thing. I think that's actually really hard to convey in the show without making Percy just look like a jerk.
Yeah.
And I think in the book, it works well because he would have these thoughts and then he would think to himself, oh, I know I'm just being jealous, or I know that this isn't fair,
right.
Stuff like that. That's hard to convey in the show. I wonder if the writing staff noticed that and really thought about it and figured, okay, we can't do this.
Yeah.
It's going to be a mess. Let's switch up the dynamic. The age thing is kind of weird anyway.
The age difference, and they do look different in age. The actors look different in age. And so it would make it a little weird, at least to show it at this point. Right. As they both get older, as Annabeth gets older, maybe it'll be a little less weird to show that she had a crush on him, which is also like totally a thing for young girls to have a crush on older guys, as long as nobody's acting on it.
Right.
But it is like a very...
especially the camp counselor type thing, like, for sure.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see where they take this.
Yeah. But I'm really intrigued. And I hope that people are my level of, I'm really excited to see what they do with this, as opposed to people being like, she's not supposed to be there. Like, this change will set up something interesting. I think it will be fun. Let's see what they do.
Yeah.
Overall, with all of this, I think it just makes so many things earned. I think it makes the whole Luke Hermes thing earned. I think it makes so many instances of bringing in the bigger Luke arc into the season. This whole scene just made it all make sense and made it all worth it.
The other thing that made him lunge, besides Percy actually slicing him, the first thing that makes Luke lunge is Percy says, I met your dad. And Luke doesn't even let him finish the sentence. That rage is in his eyes, and he's starting the fight.
Yeah. What's also fun at this point, this episode is only like 40 something minutes. It felt like 90 minutes worth of content.
Yeah.
Like, it just felt
it was so good.
Like so much. Because I think when this fight was happening, I moved my mouse just to kind of see how much is left in the episode. And there's still like a lot of time left in the episode.
I did that multiple times. I was like, am I like making any progress in this at all?
Yeah.
Is it almost over? Because it feels like it's about to be over.
They did such a good job of putting so much in, but not making it feel rushed. Like, it felt fast paced, but that's because it is a fast paced thing. I don't think it felt rushed or crammed or like they left anything on the table. So then after all of this happens, Percy and Annabeth are back. You have this scene of Chiron being proud of Percy, which I like. I want Percy and Chiron to have more of a connection.
Yeah.
And I hope they continue to establish that over the course of the season, because I feel like we're not exactly there yet. And I think we can get there in a future season where we have more time at camp. I think like beginning of season 2, we can get that. And this scene gave me confidence that that will happen in a future season.
Right. He talks like a mentor to Percy. Also, note, has Percy worn this cool yellow jacket yet? Because this is a very cool, very cool yellow jacket.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
It's good. You are a big fan of yellow. It's your favorite color.
It's great.
We then get a hilarious comedic scene, which is good because we haven't had comedy in a minute.
Oh, before that.
Oh, sure.
Before that, Chiron's doing his mentor thing to Percy, and he says that he wants him to take an armed escort with him. And Percy's like, I don't think Luke is trying to kill me. And Chiron's like, I know. That's what I'm worried about too. He's trying to recruit you. And Percy's like, I'm not interested in that. And Chiron points out something that I think is really cool. Chiron points out, but when Luke was telling you why he's doing this, it sounded a little compelling to you, didn't it? And I think that's what makes Luke such a great villain, is that what he's saying makes sense. And it's a compelling argument. That's what makes a good villain, is to have a compelling argument, a drive that people could get on board with if your methods for doing that were just a little bit different. Like Thanos, right?
Well, I was actually going to say the reverse. My go-to, I always say Killmonger is always my example.
Killmonger is a great one too. Right. I was going to say Thanos. Because
Thanos is just whack. He should have just doubled the resources and doubled the size of the earth. He's an idiot.
That's what I mean, is he has a good point. The world, the universe is overpopulated. What we need to fix this, and his methods are wrong. Kill half the people, right? That's the issue. Killmonger, same thing with there needs to be more equality. People have been left out for too long. All right, we're going to kill all the people who left us out. Like that, it's a compelling villain because they make sense. And that's what Chiron points out is Luke made sense to you, didn't he? And I actually forget what Percy responded because I was so like, whoa, you're right. But I'm sure Percy responded something along the lines of, yeah, but I'm not interested.
Right. So then we have the scene of Mr. D going around telling everyone to leave, and it's so Manzukis is just so good.
Funny.
When they're talking to Percy, he goes, Percy, but says it in a way like not what the follow-up is, where the follow-up is, I thought it was Peter. And then they just have a back and forth of like, I thought it was,
are you sure?
Are you sure? I'm pretty sure it's Peter. He's like, I think I know my own name. It's Percy Jackson.
Percy Jackson. He turns to the camera, breaks the fourth wall and goes, it's Percy Jackson.
Yeah, I was waiting for him to go, it's Percy Jackson. Turn to the camera. And the Olympians on Disney Plus Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. See the whole thing. So then Mr. D basically...
Can you imagine?
So good. So this is why I'm not in charge of any decisions on any television show. It'd be a mess. But...
I'm just seeing it in my head.
I know.
It's so funny.
Look, it'd be good. Hire me to do like funny social media promos.
Yeah.
But then Mr. D has a thing where he just says like, I don't care. And then he walks off and he's like, tell people like, everybody who's not staying here for the full term, get out. You get out. You're gone. Get out of here. So good. So good. So then we go back to Thalia's tree and we have Percy there and Annabeth there. She has new hair. It looks very cool.
Yes,
the
her
braided
new hair is very cool.
situation looked awesome.
Yeah.
And I like that Percy, showing full growth, is being nice to Annabeth about the tree. Saying something about like, oh.
But also bringing up the tree so that we can set up season 2 a little bit more.
Sets that up, but then tries to like go. It's the thing where like you try to be nice, but you do it in the wrong way, where he says something like, oh, how does the tree feel about all this? And it's like, it's a tree, Percy. And he's like, okay, how do you feel about all this? So then Annabeth is talking about her plans for the break. Her dad wants to take her to New York. So she says she has to pretend like she hasn't been there before. And then she says that he's going to bring her to Disney World. And she makes a joke about it being similar to Waterland, but it's supposed to be fun. And then I just know people are going to be so mad about this.
Really? I thought it was so funny.
It's funny, but people are going to be like, wow, cash grab from Disney.
I thought it was hilarious.
As if Disney needs to promote Disney World, as if people don't know about it. Like,
it gave me vibes of, you won the Super Bowl. What are you going to do next?
Yes,
I'm going to go to Disney World.
Like, it's... People are going to get mad, and I'm going to be so mad at them for being mad. They're going to be like, wow, they had to get the product placement in the show. It's a good joke. Don't overthink it.
It's as close as we get to Percy breaking the fourth wall and going, 9 p.m. Central.
9 p.m. Eastern, Kelly.
Sorry.
But yeah, I know people are going to get mad, and it's going to be so silly. It's going to be so silly.
Funny.
But then Grover runs up, and I realized at this point, I miss Grover. It's been so long without Grover.
Oh, yeah,
I miss Grover. And he comes up and he has this cool flower on his shirt, and that is his searcher's license. I love that. I always imagined the searcher's license as like a laminated like driver's license.
Yeah, me too.
The flower is so much cooler. I love the flower. It's great. He talks about how so much of the world has been searched for already to try and find Pan, but no one's thought to check the seas. So we're setting up the Sea of Monsters. And Percy has a great reply where he says, let me know if you need any help. Quote, I know some people in management out there. What a great line. What a great line. Then Percy makes a pact with the three of them. Hey, no matter what, let's make a pact to meet back here in a year. They do a group hug. There's a swell of music. I teared up. It was adorable. So cute. Then we're back on the beach. And I was very confused.
Back in Montauk.
What? We're back on Montauk.
Oh, interesting.
And then he's talking with Sally. And then Sally says, after a little conversation, it's time to wake up. And then I was like, oh, okay, this makes more sense because him being in Montauk would have been weird. So
yeah, I need to go find my mom. She's not in our apartment. She's certainly in Montauk.
Right.
Let's go there.
So I love then that Percy, when he realizes this is the Kronos thing, he goes, we're doing this again? I won. You lost. Just great trash talking. And then Kronos really sets up the stakes, trying to say some ominous stuff about Percy, not sounding like Percy got the win on him. He tells Percy that Percy's survival is the key to his return, which is true with the great prophecy. Really solid. But then Percy wakes up from the dream. Sally's waking him up because 7th grade is about to begin. And I have to say, as a New Yorker, the New York noises were so authentic. It sounded just like street wood in Midtown, or I guess they're farther up north. But like it just sounded like a true Manhattan street because they had car horns honking and then a truck reversing. Like it felt very much like when we were in Midtown. It sounds like
somebody went to our apartment and set up a boom mic and just let it go off for a little bit and then put it in the background.
Truly, 100%. It was so authentic. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they did for the audio.
Our apartment? Really?
Wow.
Look, I didn't know we rented that out to them.
I have hours of audio of me waiting for sirens to leave from our old place that they probably could have used it.
It's free source material. If they take it from your podcast, there's your cameo right there.
Boom. I found my way in.
Your street noise.
So Percy calls Kronos grandpa, which I had never thought of. It as so funny. Yeah. And then Sally tells him, don't call him that. And I love Sally has a dream journal to write down all the things that he said. I think that's really, really smart. But then Percy, when Sally asks, what did Kronos say this time? He waits a beat and then says, tell your mom how much you love her. And then Sally's like, the Lord of Time told you that. And like, I get that this is a cute thing, but also like, Percy, you should probably tell Sally what he said. It's probably in your best interest so that you have as much information as possible. Then we see this action montage of Percy getting ready for school. And we see blue pancakes and blueberries. I love it. It's such a great shot. And it's so well framed and filmed. And it's another thing I talked to Jet, the director, about. Like, it's such a good shot. And I also think doing blue pancakes makes sense. Because did blue pancakes ever get mentioned as a thing in the books, or was it just the chocolate chip cookies? I know he talked about the blue food. Maybe blue pancakes were there and I'm not remembering it. But regardless, I think the pancakes make way more sense than showing the chocolate chip cookies for multiple reasons. One, it's the morning, getting ready for school. It's breakfast. But also, if anyone has ever tried to make blue chocolate chip cookies, you know they come out a little green. Like, there's nothing you can do. They come out a little green. And I did a collaboration that I don't know if it'll be out at the time of posting with one of my friends from Rice, who is now a full-time food blogger and stuff. And we did a collaboration where she made blue chocolate chip cookies.
They were so
good. And then
good.
we made a video. They were really freaking good.
They were really blue too.
Yeah. So I came over and she said, oh, like, I did it. I'm really sorry. Like, they kind of turned green a little bit. And I was like, I have seen so many photos of them. I've seen lots of people do these. My listeners, you made them a couple of times. Like, I've seen a lot of instances. These are the bluest ones I have ever seen.
They look like Cookie Monster blue. So that's the color
that's
blue.
Funny that you said it. She said the recipe was inspired by a Cookie Monster recipe.
That's so funny.
Because I think there's a Cookie Monster recipe that she found that involved like chocolate chips and then something that was white, maybe like peppermint or whatever. But then she altered that to take out that to make it just the blue chocolate chip cookies. But they were so good, and they were the bluest ones I've ever seen. But it was just so funny that she was like, I'm so sorry they came out kind of green. I was like, everyone's come out kind of green. So I see why they did the pancakes. But It's an awesome shot. And then they're getting all ready for school. And while this is going on, you get a narration from Percy that's more optimistic at this time,
Yes.
saying like, if you see yourself in the story, don't give up hope just yet. We might need you, which is a nice contrast to the opening thing. I really like it. And I really liked this scene of Percy and Sally getting ready and having fun, the blue food and stuff, because this is something Johnny and I talked about in our episode 7 episode, is that we haven't had a ton of like Percy, Sally being buddy friends and stuff. We get a little bit of it in episode 1, but then all the other stuff is flashbacks, and it's like the swimming lesson, which was kind of bumping up against each other.
Yeah.
And then same thing with going to the school and the Subaru and all that. So it was nice to see another like Percy and Sally being like a team. They're talking about the dreams. They're getting ready for school. She's making the blue food. They're going out the door. Like, I loved ending the season on a very happy Percy Sally note.
Yes.
I think it's great. But the season has not truly ended, because first we get the in memoriam, in loving memory of Lance Reddick, which was really nice to see. And I liked that it stayed on frame for like a good chunk of time.
Yeah.
Like, I really like that. Then we get the credits, and then after the credits, we get the Smelly Gabe thing.
Yes.
And I had wondered about this throughout the episodes. Are they going to kill Smelly Gabe? Is Sally going to kill Smelly Gabe? And I didn't think they were going to until the Ares phone thing. Then I was like, okay, his death is back on the table when he's on the news broadcast and Ares shows them at the diner.
Yeah.
Then I thought, all right, he's back on the table to die. And I, at that point, felt like it was going to be similar to the movie thing. Like, he will die, but it won't be direct. I don't know if I ever voiced that on the podcast, but I promise that's what I was thinking. And then this happened, and it's such a great scene because he's coming back. He's on the phone with some sort of lawyer that feels like one of his friends, and he doesn't realize how expensive a lawyer is. And he says something about like, oh, first my wife divorces me, and now she's changed the locks. And
so funny.
He does the thing. He has this really funny line where he asks, what am I supposed to do? And then clearly the person on the other line is starting to give advice. He goes, no. How do you pick a lock? Which is great. And then the box is there, the return to sender thing. And I love this as the choice, because the thing in the Lightning Thief movie with like the padlocked fridge with the don't open under any circumstances thing.
Oh, yeah.
That was just so far-fetched and weird. And like, would Percy have done that? Did Sally know about it? Then no, like, this is weird. The return to sender thing makes so much sense because it's something that actually happened in the book. Like, the gods do return to sender it to Percy.
And Percy sends it to his mom as a way of empowering her. However, it also makes her into a murderer.
Right.
So I do like that she gets her empowerment by divorcing him and changing the locks.
Correct.
But she is not made a murderer.
Yes.
Instead, Smelly Gabe is made into, he commits a felony.
Yeah, you can't open someone else's mail.
He opened Percy's mail and he pays for it.
Look, you do the crime, you spend the time, eternity as a statue. But yeah, I love this. This is just like such a creative solution that is still canonically true in terms of the return to sender being there. And what's funny about the return to sender is that the way the address is written is way too formally done. Like, it says like the full thing of like East 104th Street and First Avenue. Like, it's not written in the way that it would normally be written. So it feels true to the gods, like not necessarily doing it as true New Yorkers. I also think if you return to sender, you don't have to write all of that. Like, it's got his return address on it. You could just put return to sender. But Gabe opens the box and then turns to stone, and that is the end of Percy Jackson and the Olympians.
Ends it on a little cute, funny note as well. Ties up that loose end very nicely. It was just a great ending to the episode.
Really solid. Great ending to a great episode and a great final episode in a great season. I enjoyed it. I loved it.
It was so wonderful.
I am very excited for future seasons.
Me too.
Very, very excited.
I want to know how far they're going to take it.
I mean, it's got to be all the way.
I mean, okay, so yeah, it's going to go all the way for the original series. But then...
Oh, they'll do Heroes of Olympus. They might have to recast and stuff.
That's what I was going to say, is I wonder if they'll recast for
will.
every subsequent series, because
they probably will.
The kids are just going to get so much older, and will they recast? Will they do Trials of Apollo? Will they recast? I don't even know what that one's about. I haven't read it yet.
You got to get on it.
Like, I started wondering this the other day because I'm rereading Heroes of Olympus right now, and I was like, I want to see the TV shows for this. I mean, they're much longer. You know that much because you've seen the books on our shelves. They're much longer. But if they established themselves enough with this first series. Oh man, as I'm reading it this time around, I'm like, I want to see that in special effects. I want to see that in special effects.
It'll be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Kelly, thank you so much for joining. This was very fun.
This was very fun.
This is not the end of all of your episode 8 discussions, because we will be doing the Patron 5 over at Patreon, where I ask you 5 questions about the episode. So if people want to hear more about that, head on over to thenewstolympian.com/Patreon. And this is also not the end of the coverage of the TV show. I don't want to do too many episodes about TV show stuff now that the show is completely out, because I want to get on to the other episodes and then get on to Heroes of Olympus.
Heroes of Olympus.
But I am going to do an episode with folks just kind of talking about the full season, just so that we can talk about like overarching themes and stuff, because we've really kind of kept this to as much as we can episode by episode. So I think it'd be interesting to talk about like overarching themes, and I'll talk with folks who don't have the same background that I do. So someone who has seen the movies only, and then someone who only watches a show and nothing else.
Ooh,
so get it full. It's going to be with Kyle Banduho, who has seen the movies but not read the books.
Yeah.
And then Rowan Ellis, who has consumed nothing Percy Jackson except for the show.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear those perspectives.
So I think that'll be a really fun one, but I don't want to do too much stuff, and I've got some interviews as well.
I want to know specifically if Rowan is confused by the blue food. I don't think they've ever really explained why.
Yeah, they just show the candy and then the pancakes.
They just see, like, you just see a bunch of blue food start popping up. So I wonder if Rowan picks up on the fact that they're all blue and is confused by that.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting,
Yeah.
and it'll be fun. So we'll still have some other coverage. But Kelly, thank you so much for joining. Listeners, thank you so much for listening. And until next time, when we put something on the feed that will be show related, but I got to figure out exactly the order in which we're doing them. Until then, I'll see you later. Hello. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Grugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you can't get enough of the show, you can find us on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and we're on Reddit as well, reddit.com/r/The Newest Olympian. And if you really can't get enough of the show, you can check out the bonus content for the podcast at thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. There's a bunch of bonus content. You can get exclusive merchandise, lots of fun stuff there. And if you want other merchandise, you can go to our merch store, thenewestolympian.com/merch. I mentioned the Patreon, so let's give a shout out to our producer level patrons: Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steve Nuggets, Vicky Garcia, Ellie Hoskovchova, Veronica Bartova, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Polly Burridge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Josh Sayer, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Ashton Gabrielson, Marco Redhouse, Sam Reeby, Riley Kiddes, Mary Kelly, Mrs. O'Leary, Milo Kim, CC Reeds 23, Sandkopf, Julia Kendall, Ricky, John Drielsma, Rayla Matthews, Riley Draken, Luna Kadoon, Sky Mallory, Persasabeth, Aiden Parziani, Biggest Tyson Fan, Hunter Landstrom, Captain Jack Rackham, King Bastion, One Damn Distraction Coming Up, Ginger Spurs Boy, A Cup of Solace, Meg Roy, Lux, Neil, Olivia Krinicki, Mrs. O'Leary is Best Doggo, Bradimus Prime, Keepo Guy, McKenna Finley, Skylar Sisters, Demigod Nurse, Zachary Hamilton, Scott Sheldon, Sophie, Natanya Page, and Ann M. Thayer Cohen. If you want to help out the show in a non-monetary way, just talk about the podcast, whether that is posting about it on social media or reaching out to someone that you think would like the show, or just leaving us a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you are using. All of those things help. Spreading the show's existence via word of mouth is essential for the podcast, so I'm very appreciative to anyone who has done that in the past or will do it in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and I hope you tune into our next episode, where we'll be joined by staff writer Daphne Olive to talk about all things season 1 of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. But until then, I'll see you later. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. So on my walk to the subway today, I passed a whole bunch of pigeons nesting underneath the subway rails, some of the above ground outdoor subway rails, and you could hear them chirping and stuff quite loudly. So here is that sound to close out this ASMR Mike segment. Thank you for listening.